Have you seen a nation fall? Not because of war, because of the collapsing mental health of its citizens. Because that's what we are watching, a collapsing thought, a funeral of curiosity, a generation of Muslims gift with the divine command to read, now being buried under the weight of their own ignorance. And while we debate pretty issue, the world builds universities, send rockets to Mars, and patents the very future. And we teach our children to fear books more than bullets, to memorize without understanding, to obey without questioning, to survive without dreaming. Today, in this part of journey, we will speak of six brutal truths, six foundations of this mental welfare, where the enemy isn't outside the community, but inside our minds. So listen carefully, because after this, you can never say you didn't know. Let's begin with the most obvious demon, the system. The system that was designed without us and today survives because of our silence. Across the globe, from UP to Uttarakhand, you will find a common static. Wherever Muslims exist in a large number, you will find illiteracy, poverty, and neglect concentrated like poison in a wound. Not because of we lack of intelligence, because of we lack of representation. The system was built for someone else's child, a child who speaks the dominant language, a child whose name is easy to pronounce, a child whose parents are already graduates, a child who doesn't wear a topi or hijab, and we are expected to compare in that same race with broken shoes and has no track. तुम्हारे बच्चे स्कूल तक जा पाते हैं, हमारे बच्चे स्कूल से पहले ही कट जाते हैं. Reservation, a joke. Most of people don't even know how to apply digital portals, half our home, no electricity, online classes. Try taking them in a one-room house with 5 siblings. Try it on a broken Android with no internet pack. This isn't equality. This is elite survival. Now let's talk about the only institutions we still control, the mosques, the madrasas. We have done with them. We turned into the time machines. We stuck in 13th century. Imagine the first revolution to the prophet was read. And today, in many madrasas, children are punished for asking why. Isn't that betrayal? We had a chance to make these institutions center of science, mathematics, astronomy, literature. We could produce engineers in skull caps, scientists who recite Quran, doctors who understand Hadith and anatomy both. But we choose stagnation, and those who tried to modernize were labeled kafir, as if Allah Himself feared the rise of knowledge. इल्म से डर कर जो दीवारें तुमने बनाई थी, अब वो तुम्हें ही कैद कर रही हैं. Instead of transforming the madrasa, we let it remain an isolated island, respected by none, feared by someone, and understood by no one. It's time we stop blaming outsiders and start asking what we've done with our own education assets. Let's not lose hope, because history has shown us Muslims can rise even from the darkest halls. Let me give some names that shouldn't just in textbooks but in our hearts. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, son of a boat owner in Rameshwaram, who studied under the streetlights and went on to become India's missile man. And Professor Abdul Qadir Khan, raised in a poor family, become the father of Pakistan nuclear program. Malala Yousafzai, shot in the head for wanting to be study, and still stood taller than world leaders. Muhammad Siraj, son of an auto driver, become the spearhead of Indian bowling, not by luck, but by the discipline, struggle, and books. These are not fairy tales, they are blood written testaments to what possible. But ask yourself, how many Abduls did we lose to garbage picking? How many Fatima died delivering babies when they themselves were denied educations? How many dreams were aborted at birth because they were born in a Muslim ghetto with no school, no library, no mentor? जिन्हें किताबें चाहिए थी उनके हाथों में कूड़े की बोरियां पकड़ा दी गई. This one hurts the most. We have been taught somehow that to be religious is to be anti-education. That if you learn science, if you will forget Allah, that if you go to college, you will lose your deen. But here's the truth, they don't want to hear. Islam isn't anti-education. Islam is education. The Prophet said, seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. Not just Islamic knowledge, all knowledge that benefits humanity. You can't be a good Muslim and a bad student. You can't pray 5 times a day and ignore the command to read. That's not the religion. That's disobedience dressed in tradition. And this fear, this disconnect, it was planted in us by colonizers. They gave us 2 paths, English without Islam or Islam without education. And like fools, we believed in the lie. But now, we must rebuild the bridge. We must teach our children to balance both दुनिया and deen, Quran and computer, नमाज and NASA. तुम्हें सिर्फ और सिर्फ जन्नत की फिक्र है, इसलिए तुम्हारी दुनिया जहन्नम बन चुकी है. Let's stop blaming the government. Let's stop blaming the colonizers. Let's stop blaming the history. Let's talk about us, our homes, our minds, our fears. But the truth is, there is no psychological resistance to education that is deeply rooted in our community. We glorify poverty as piety. We romanticize suffering as sabr. We associate knowledge with arrogance, and we shame anyone who dares to rise. A child who wants to become a scientist is asked, क्या दीन भूल गया? A girl who wants to study medicine is asked, तू घर कैसे संभालेगी? A boy who wants to join IAS is taunted, काफिरों के साथ बैठने जाएगा. This isn't our culture. This is a cage. We fear what we don't understand. And since we never experienced modern education, we call it dangerous. But remember, when education becomes a threat to your identity, you are no longer free. You are enslaved. And this slavery is inherited from one scared generation to the next. We tell our kids, don't ask questions, don't talk too much, don't dream too big, stay in your lane, don't become too smart, लोग बुरा कहेंगे. दिमाग खुदा की नेमत है, मगर तुमने उसे भी हराम समझ लिया. This fear isn't faith, it's failure disguised as humility. And until we recognize that, no change is possible. But now, let's rebuild. Not just with bricks and cement, but with books and courage. We must launch a cognitive revolution. Not just send children to school but change how they think, because the real education doesn't lie in a degree, it lies in the ability to question, to analyze, to innovate. We need to teach our children not just what to think, but how to think, not just fact, but frameworks, not just survival, but significance. This is begun at home. Father must ask their sons, what did you learn today? Instead of kya kamaya. Mothers must teach their daughters how to challenge a wrong answer, not just how to make perfect roti. Teachers must stop beating curiosity out of student and start nurturing decent, because decent creators leaders. जो कौम सवाल करना भूल जाती है वो गुलामी याद रखती है. We must also integrate psychology and philosophy into our syllabus. We must talk about Muslim scientists like Ibn Sina and Al-Khwarizmi, thinkers like Al-Farabi and Al-Ghazni, modern minds like Nouman Ali Khan and Dr. Yasir Qadi and Mehdi Hasan. Our kids should not just know about Steve Jobs but also Fazlur Rahman Khan, the Muslim who built the tallest tower in the world. We must retrain our mind to stop asking, will I go to Jannah? And start asking, what legacy will I leave behind? This is the real revolution, not the streets, but the neural pathways of every Muslim brain. So now, let me ask you, are you ready to rewrite your story? Or will you remain in this graveyard of forgotten potential? Will your child become the next Kalam or another name lost in the list of school dropouts? Will you build school or just keep building walls? Will you reclaim IQRA or let it die on your lips? The war of the Muslim minds is the war of future of Islam. It will not won with slogans, not with flags, not with hashtags. It will won in classrooms, in libraries, in laboratories, in late night study sessions, in quiet